FAIRtax is coming, don't stand in the way. FAIRtax is coming across the USA. FAIRtax is coming, clean up this mess. We got to get rid of the IRS. Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are
the FAIRtax Guys.
And a couple of days late, happy 4th of July to you, my friend.
Yep. Happy fireworks. Happy 4th of July. And
well, the dog doesn't like the fireworks.
Happy birthday, America.
Hey, man, I'll tell you what. Before we dig into it, let's give everybody our contact information again. The FAIRtax Guys at gmail.com is our email address. And we have a Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com and like our page, and we would appreciate that a bunch. If you have a question or a comment, leave that as well. We will get back to you.
Yep. And, you know, one of these days, we got to do another Facebook Live. We were kind of delinquent for June, but June has been a very, very busy month with all the changes.
Yeah, well, you got drafted to be the president of the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. We mentioned that a while back.
Yeah, and we had a board meeting, and I woke up the day after the board meeting thinking, how am I going to do this? But I realized I'm not going to do it. We are going to do it. We have some great people here in Florida. And, you know, whatever state you're in or whatever country you're in, if you're thinking about the FAIRtax, there are some people there to help you. So, by the way, Bob,
yes,
I showed you we are the world-famous FAIRtax Guys, aren't we?
Yes, you did.
Yes, because we now have a geolocation showing what parts of the world are listening to FAIRtax Power Radio. And we have several different countries all around the planet listening to FAIRtax Power Radio.
Are they really considering the FAIRtax in India?
Yeah.
We've got listeners in India. How cool is that?
It's amazing. I was so pleased to see that. So we are the world-famous FAIRtax Guys.
I'm impressed. I'll tell you what, let's get this before I forget it. Us old guys tend to forget things at times. We have again been keeping track of all of the proposed changes to the tax code, and we've been doing that by referencing the congress.gov site, where they've got this search box. You can go in and search on just about all kinds of subjects that are the subject of legislation or proposed legislation, whatnot, and the other. And we've been searching on the string Internal Revenue Code to bring back all of the bills and all of the resolutions that are proposing changes to the Internal Revenue Code. And care to take a wild guess as to what our number is up to here as we're recording this here?
Well, last time it was around 750, so I'm guessing it's somewhere over 700. I mean, it was 650 the last time, so I'm guessing it's over 700.
Bingo, Kimosabe, 706. 706 proposed changes to the tax code. Of course, not all of them will get lawed.
Just since January, folks. Since January.
So, again, we keep driving this point home. Folks, that's what the politicians do to the tax code while you're not looking. That's why it is 70,000 plus pages. That's why nobody understands it. That's why it's impossible to comply with, because they just keep monkeying with the thing they can't resist.
The FAIRtax, the FAIRtax will fix all of that, because the FAIRtax will replace this Byzantine system, if you can even call it a system. Get rid of the income tax, eliminate the IRS, because without an income tax you don't need the IRS, and replace it with a very simple consumption tax or sales tax, the FAIRtax. And it does protect the working poor, it protects everybody against taxation on the basic necessities of life. The FAIRtax is the only way to get rid of the income tax and the IRS. Got to do it.
Yeah, the flip side of that coin is if you don't get rid of the income tax, you cannot get rid of the IRS.
That's right.
Despite what some political rhetoric going around today says, we're going to eliminate the IRS, but we're going to fix it so you can put your taxes on a postcard. No. You still got to send that postcard to somebody.
That's right.
As long as the federal government is taxing income at the federal level, there will be an IRS.
And you know, We have mentioned and documented a lot of abuses by the IRS. Why does the IRS get away with that? Because Congress made it possible.
And because we, the people, aren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's true.
We're letting that happen.
Yeah, that's right. And no more. We got to put an end to this madness.
All right. Well, we mentioned a minute ago that it was just a couple of days ago we celebrated the 4th of July, Independence Day, and I assume your wife came up with this list. She is our crack statistician and research person. Well, things that the FAIRtax will allow you to declare your independence from.
That's right. We worked on this while we were in the car the other day.
Now, what do you think's at the top of the list? The IRS.
Yep, the FAIRtax allows you to declare your independence from the IRS. If you don't have an income tax, you don't need the IRS, and we will eliminate the IRS. They'll be given 3 years to finish up what they're currently working on, and then it'll be gone. It's a sales tax, folks. It's collected by a sales tax organization, and it's collected by the state sales tax organizations, whatever each state has in place. And all the federal government has to do is collect the money from the various state sales tax organizations. No IRS.
In place of the IRS, because there will be no enforcement, and administration of the fair tax at the federal level. It will be that happens at the state level. All you need at the federal level would be a small office within the Treasury Department to simply receive the money that the states collect for it.
Yeah.
And that's it. So the IRS will go away. There will be no more tax returns. And you can declare your independence from IRS audits. Now, I've never had to deal with one of those, but I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. They are traveling evangelists, and they rack up thousands upon thousands of miles, because they travel literally. They're based in Tennessee. They travel literally all over the country. And they have to keep meticulous records of how far they drive. And to say it's in the thousands of miles every year.
Sure.
And they've been audited about 3 years in a row. And the one thing that the auditor, just invariably nails them on is this mileage that they claim.
Oh.
So Lisa was telling me the other day about just what a nightmare it is to deal with the IRS. Now, not everybody's a traveling evangelist.
Well, but
there are all kinds of things that you can declare as business expenses that the IRS is going to audit you on.
I used to do employee business expenses if you have to travel, as a part of your job. That's the same type of thing. You got to claim mileage and so forth. There's a 2106. I remember that form vividly. You not only had to put down your mileage that you did for work, you had to put down your mileage that you didn't do for work. You had to let them know what kind of car you had. And, all this information that whose business is it anyways? So, these IRS audits, they'll be gone. We will declare our independence from IRS audits.
And while you're at it, let's declare your independence from IRS intrusion into your personal affairs. You just mentioned some of the stuff.
Yeah,
Why
that's
is it
part
any
of
of
it.
their business what kind of car you've got? Why is it any of their business where you make your money, how you make your money, and what you spend it on? Why is it any of their business knowing how much you give to the church or give to the Red Cross, charitable donations and stuff like that? Why is it any of their business that they know how much you spent on medical expenses?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty personal, don't you think?
Yeah. And, they tax you on interest on your savings and investment, which really gives them a clue. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, on some of these forms, you have to tell them how much you're investing. And what business is it of theirs? If you're not even willing to share that with your own kids, why do you have to share it with the IRS? So we will declare, with the FAIRtax, we will declare our independence from IRS intrusion into our personal affairs.
Mm-hmm. And I will declare mine from receipt and record keeping. I'll tell you what, again, Lisa was telling me about, this traveling evangelist wife, was telling me about all the different meticulous records they have to keep beyond just mileage.
Yeah.
And they have to keep a whole logbook of all kinds of stuff, and she's just pulling her hair out as to how much time and effort it takes to keep these records for the IRS, and how she has to defend them to the IRS just about every year.
Oh, that's outrageous. I mean, these people are probably not rolling in dough. I mean, they're doing this because they love to do it.
That's correct.
And so they're not, they're not mega millionaires or something. So why is the IRS harassing these people? I mean, there's crazy. They're not going to get anything out of it. It's not like it's U.S. Steel or something, or some mega corporation or some very wealthy person. It's crazy. So let's get rid of them, all right?
Well, they feel like they're targeted because of the type of work that they do. Of course, they'll never admit it, but that's what they think.
We're getting to that in a little further down the list here. Okay,
mercy.
So, with the fair tax, we can declare our independence from withholding taxes.
Oh, I love that one. That's called you bring home everything you earn.
Yeah.
Uncle Sam no longer grabs a chunk of your paycheck or your IRA distribution or your lottery winnings if you're so lucky. They no longer happen. If you earn $500, you get $500. It's not taxed until you spend it with a fair tax. Because again, the fair tax, we got to get people out of this box that they're in, thinking about the income tax, which is the only way anybody's ever known here now. And think about, just because that's the only way it's been, does not mean it's the best way to do it. Doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Get rid of the income tax. Tax your spending, not your income. And that works. It funds the federal government at the same level, but there's no audits, there's no IRS, there's no record keeping, and no withholding taxes. And on top of that, the fair tax will get rid of the FICA and Medicare payroll taxes that come out of your paycheck as well. So with the fair tax, so if you're taxed when you spend it, not when you make it, you bring it all home. I love that.
Remember, withholding means that you have to feed the federal government before you can feed your family. That's backwards. I mean, that's I won't use the word I was thinking of. But anyways.
Family show, watch it.
Yeah, this is a family show. But anyways, that is upside down, folks. This country was created, the framers of the Constitution and our founding fathers put the people in charge. And this income tax, that's turning it upside down. We got to right the ship again.
Yeah, the fair tax has a wonderfully simple way to make sure that the family comes first.
Absolutely.
Because it has to be simple. You're not going to get into the business of keeping track of how much everybody spends. But under the fair tax, your spending up to the poverty level for your household size is not taxed. But since you're going to be paying that tax at the register on those purchases, what the fair tax does, they call it the prebate, or the family consumption allowance. You are reimbursed for the taxes you paid on that level of spending up to the poverty level. So you do not take a dime out of your own pocket until your spending exceeds the poverty level, which means that you take care of your family before you feed the government.
And if you're
make a logical, reasoned argument that why that's wrong, I don't think you can do it.
If you're hearing about the fair tax for the first time and you want to know what this prebate thing is, we encourage you to go to fairtax.org and check it out. The prebate is extremely important. It is the key to fairness in the fair tax, and it's a very important concept. So do your homework, figure out what it is. We've talked about it numerous times on FAIRtax Power Radio, and we will talk about it again sometime.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
We're going on with our list here. Declare your independence from unreasonable search and seizure, a.k.a. civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, that's one of your hot buttons, I know.
Oh, yeah. It is. I mean, the IRS has been given the authority to seize your bank account and not even charge you with a crime and not even notify you. No due process, no protection against unreasonable search and seizure. They just have an inkling that you're doing something wrong, even when you're not. And we talked about that study a few weeks ago, which was done by the Inspector General for the Taxing Authority. All right, the Treasury Inspector General for the Taxing Authority did a study of like 280 cases in which the IRS did civil asset forfeiture. And they found out that 91% of those seizures were seized from people who were absolutely 100% honest, doing nothing wrong. But still, the IRS grabbed their bank accounts, all right, without accusing them of anything. And why? Not because the IRS is incompetent. It's because they're corrupt. They found out that the IRS figured out, actually with instructions from the DOJ, this is a few years ago, that it was easier to grab the money from the innocent people than to do the hard work of chasing down the criminals. Civil asset forfeiture is put in place for fighting crime. But the IRS feels that fighting crime and doing the hard work of finding the criminals is just too hard for them, so it's much easier to go after the innocent people.
And in a lot of these cases, they end up admitting that that person has done nothing wrong. Say, oh, sorry, you can have your bank account back. That's years down the road, and you have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time defending yourself. And, it's just wrong that an agency like that can do that to anybody.
It's absolutely horrible.
With the fair tax, which again gets rid of the income tax, gets rid of the IRS in its entirety, you can declare your independence from these unreasonable search and seizures and the civil asset forfeitures and the trampling of the Bill of Rights that the IRS does on a routine basis.
Yep. What's the next one there, Bob?
Declare your independence from productivity penalties.
What do we mean by that? Okay. Well, if you're a go-getter and you work your regular job and you work extra on the weekend or at nights or something, let's say you're a salesman for a company and you had an extremely good year. You're a good salesperson and you made a lot of money. The more money you make because you're a go-getter, the more Uncle Sam takes from you, and I mean at a higher percentage rate. So that's what we mean by penalizing you for productivity.
Yeah, I have personally known people who ask their bosses to take back this raise you just gave me because it kicks me up into the next tax bracket, and I'm actually losing money overall. The government is taking more of it, and I was better off with the lower salary.
Now, is that good for our economy?
No, sir.
To inhibit people from doing well and from doing better and for doing greater productivity? I heard a small businessman tell me he came to the house to do something on the foundation. He said, yeah, I got a lot of business I could add to our company right now. But if I go over that magic number of 50, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. So I'm keeping my company right at this size here. He refused to grow because of the tax code. Okay? That is backwards. All right? Mm-hmm. That is backwards. We need a tax code that enhances productivity, does not penalize it. We need a tax code that's going to help the economy, not hurt the economy. That's going to grow business, not stifle business. And that tax code is the fair tax. That's the only way.
Yeah, because if your tax rate under the fair tax is determined by how much you spend, not by how much you make.
Right.
So if you've got an extra job, if you get a promotion, if you're a really hustler on a salesperson that can go out and really knock on doors and make a lot of money, there's no hindrance to you doing that under the fair tax. The income tax will hold you back for sure. Bad idea. Let's go with the fair tax.
Absolutely.
I get this next one.
Okay.
Declare your independence from, and I got a whole list of things here. W-2s, W-4s, Form 1040, Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, Schedule D, Form 2106, Form 706, Form 843, Form 851, 911, 1041, 1045, and on and on and on and on. I don't want to mess with any of those things again, ever again.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? All those forms going away. And by the way, if we had a complete list, we would take up the rest of the entire program and still not finish listing all the forms.
Oh, good. Yeah, the instructions for those things is over 100 pages long.
Oh,
the original tax return, when it first came out in 1913, was like a page and a half or something.
Yeah.
And now the instructions are over 100 pages long.
Oh, it's crazy.
I will declare my independence in that because, again, the fair tax is the only tax reform proposal that gets rid of the income tax. You cannot do a flat tax, and it will morph back into what we've got now. You certainly don't want a European-style VAT tax. What we need is to get rid of the income tax, and we keep pounding on this over and over. The fair tax gets rid of the income tax. Gone. It repeals all the statutory authority under which the income tax operates, and it's got a little sunset clause in it that says if the 16th Amendment, which is what is required to authorize an income tax. Prior to the 16th Amendment, the Supreme Court had held that income taxes were unconstitutional.
That's right.
So the fair tax says we're going to repeal all the statutory authority. We'll do that right out of the box. But if some way, somehow, the 16th Amendment is not repealed during the normal, constitutional amendment process, which can take a maximum of 7 years, if the 16th Amendment doesn't go away, the fair tax does go away at the end of those 7 years because we are not going to have a consumption tax, i.e. sales tax, and an income tax at the same time. Not going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. So, let's see. The next one. With the FAIRtax, we can declare our independence from penalties on savings and interest. Let's say you're a family that's, even family, got a couple kids, you're paying rent in an apartment, you want to buy your own house, and so you're saving towards that house. Right now, you're penalized because any interest you make on that savings is subject to taxation.
That's taxable income.
Yeah. And so your savings and investment grows more slowly because you have to pay taxes on the interest and dividends. Right? That goes away with the FAIRtax. Your interest and dividends will not be taxed. Your savings will grow faster, and it'll be quicker for you to get into a house. And by the way, if you buy a pre-owned house, no FAIRtax. Right?
That's correct.
FAIRtax is only on brand new items, not on used things. So, and the two big items for people are houses and cars. Those are generally the largest items a family buys. So if you buy a pre-owned house, there'll be no FAIRtax on it. If you buy a used car, there'll be no FAIRtax on it.
Yes. And I will declare my independence, if I may, from government restrictions on free speech.
Oh.
We were mentioning this the other day. This is targeted a lot at churches, but there are other organizations as well that if you have this tax-exempt status, the IRS, it takes very strict control over what you can and can't say.
Yeah, that's
right. Or you
right.
will lose your tax-exempt status. Why don't we lose the tax?
And we all know about the targeting scandals of a few years ago. I hope it's not still going on. For the Tea Parties, the IRS didn't want the Tea Parties to have free speech, so they harassed them while they were applying for a tax exempt, like a 501c3 or something like that. In fact, you know what? I learned the other day the reason the Florida organization is called the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association is because that's what we are. We're an educational association. We didn't put freedom, Constitution, that other stuff in there. We got our 501c3 without a lot of hassle, because we made it clear we were an educational association. Mm-hmm. Some of the others, like Tea Party and so forth, Constitution, those buzzwords caught the ire and the attention of the IRS, and they got harassed up the wazoo. That is a violation of their free speech.
Yeah, and don't think that just because it's going after conservatives, that if you applaud the fact that they're going after conservatives, wait until the day the shoe shifts and it goes after people because of their liberal ideology. It can and it does and it will work both ways, so it doesn't matter what your ideology is. You do not want the IRS or the government harassing you because of your political belief.
All right, the best idea is that if you have an agency that can be weaponized by one administration or another, the best thing to do is get rid of that agency, make it unnecessary.
We got to move along here fairly quickly. Let's declare independence from loopholes for well-heeled taxpayers, i.e. lobbyists, class warfare, and stuff like that. Let's give everybody the same tax treatment.
Yeah. How many people listening can afford lobbyists? Okay.
No.
Yeah. No, we can't. All right. There are a lot of loopholes in there for the wealthy people, and they can afford the CPAs and the tax accountants to find these loopholes to legally reduce their tax burden. It's okay if they do it legally, but Congress is putting all these loopholes in there because, remember, half of the people in Congress are millionaires. 1/2 of the people in Congress are millionaires. So yes, they're dressing up the tax code to protect themselves at the expense of the little people.
Yeah,
right?
and with the FAIRtax, again, this consumption tax, sales tax on goods and services you buy at the cash register, new goods and services, there are no loopholes. Everybody pays it on every purchase. Period. End of discussion. Nobody gets favorable tax treatment. Nobody gets unfavorable tax treatment. And the more you spend, the higher your out-of-pocket rate. Simple.
Yep. Let's swerve into the business area.
Oh, this is a biggie.
Oh, yeah. If you are involved, either you work for a business or you run a business,
Which you have done.
With the FAIRtax, we can declare our independence from onerous business compliance costs. For a small business, 5, 10, 20 employees, something like that, compliance costs are generally much, much higher than the tax itself, because you've got to keep records. You have to hire an accountant. You have to have all kinds of things in place to make sure that you're obeying the tax code and filing your tax returns properly. Sometimes just hiring an accountant to do your taxes, to make sure your books. And I speak from experience because when my wife and I had our little business, our truck leasing business, I kept the records, the day-to-day records on QuickBooks. But then at the end of the year, I gave it to my accountant. He went over and, fixed any mistakes I made and so forth, and then generated our K-1. I had to pay him between $500 and $1,000 just to, make sure we were all on the up and up.
Compliance costs, money you have to spend over and above your tax liability to make sure that your can stays out of jail.
Yeah. So compliance costs are a huge problem for business, especially small business. And small business creates 70% of the jobs in this country, folks, so it's very important.
Let's get rid of the government favoritism in the business sector while we're at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have Congress people who change the tax code to favor one business over another, or maybe one industry over another, all right? Why are they doing that? Because the lobbyists treat them well. That's why these Congress people, it's like they're not their own people. They're beholden to the lobbyists. Well, with the fair tax, all that goes away.
Mm-hmm. So, you touched on this as well. Let's declare independence from the unfair advantage that large businesses enjoy over small businesses from the tax standpoint. There are other things as well where the big ones have an advantage. But in the tax world, when they can afford the lobbyists, they can afford the tax accountants, they can afford the tax lawyers and the lobbyists and stuff like that, that means that the mom and pops are up against an unfair playing field, and the fair tax will get rid of that.
Yep. And another one for businesses that ship overseas. And you don't have to be a mega corporation to sell overseas. But because of our tax code, we have an unfair or unbalanced global competition.
Yeah, American goods are at a disadvantage on the world market because they contain all these embedded taxes in their costs.
Yep. And vice versa, the companies from Europe and other parts of the world that sell to us, they stripped some of those taxes away. So their products come into our country and they have a huge advantage over our companies. Let's get rid of that global unbalance, global competition. And the fair tax does that.
And one more, instead of just moaning and gnashing your teeth and wringing your hands about all these American corporations that are going overseas and taking jobs with them, they call it corporate inversion. Let's incentivize these folks to stay in America. When staying in America makes the most economic sense, that's when it's going to happen. And the fair tax does that beautifully.
Yep. And let's see. We've covered a lot of ground here, but...
That's good. We've only got about 2 minutes left.
Well, we need to remind people, support your local FAIRtax volunteers, okay? Wherever you live, you can go to FAIRtax.org and look up and see where the FAIRtax organization is in your state. Contact them and volunteer your services, or at least make a donation, okay? Help out your local people, and while you're at it, help out the Americans for Fair Taxation at fairtax.org, or you can go to bigsolution.org. Those two websites are the product of the national organization. You could call them our mothership.
Yeah, I love that big solution. We've got big problems. And we're not going to let the politicians get away with just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic or tinkering around the edges. We need a big solution for the big problems we have, one of which is just major evasion under the income tax, by the way. So we need to get rid of all of that and get rid of it. So the bigsolution.org, big solutions for big problems. I love that.
And if you want to weigh in on a completely nonpartisan site, popvox.com, POPVOX. Go to popvox.com. All the current legislation on any subject is there, and you can weigh in whether you're in favor or against it. And, just try it out. It's a great website.
Well, this is a great list that your wife put together. All the things that the fair tax lets you declare your independence from: the IRS, the audits, the withholding taxes, the compliance costs for business. There's just so much there to like about the fair tax, and you can look it up more at fairtax.org and get involved with it.
And we can really wish America a happy birthday when we go to the fair tax.
That we can. I think Thomas Jefferson would like that, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, dig back in the archives and find that episode, if you will.
Yep.
All right. Again, the FairtaxGuys at gmail.com is how you get a hold of us, or like us on our Facebook page. Leave us a question or a comment. We'll be glad to hear from you. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of FairTax Power Radio. Thank you again so much for listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are the FairTax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution. And once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming. Don't stand in the way. Fair tax is coming. Cause the